Hey, what's up everybody, and welcome back to another episode of News Dose, where I give you all of the latest gaming news. And one thing that has really impressed me early in the new generation of consoles is the PS5 Dualsense controller. It really does feel great with all of its new technology, especially in games like Astro's Playroom. It feels fantastic in that game, and if you have not checked out Astro's Playroom, I highly recommend that game. However, it looks like PS5 players are starting to report a malfunction within the PS5 Dualsense controller. There's some conflicting opinions on if this is widespread or not, but we're going to talk all about that here in just a bit and see exactly what's happening. Also, Nintendo continues to dominate as the year goes by, but really, gaming as a whole is just excelling right now, and wow, it's been an insane year for gaming, and I'll explain that as well. As always though, I cover the entire game industry, so let's get right into the news. And right away, let's talk about Psychonauts 2 because I'm really excited about this game. I immediately supported this game on Fig because the first game was absolutely amazing and it deserves a sequel. It's definitely a very overlooked game, and if you've not played the first Psychonauts yet, and if you like 3D platformers, you really need to check that game out. It's aged incredibly well thanks to its art style, and the gameplay is still just as good as it ever was with all of its creativity. In my opinion, it ranks right up there with Mario, Spyro, and Banjo-Kazooie. Plus, you'll get to meet the Milkman, and that's an adventure all on its own. The question that everybody wants to know, though, is when will Psychonauts 2 release? It's been a long time in development, and it got delayed into 2021, though I think it's important to note here that this delay was actually a good thing. Double Fine does not crunch, which is great for the developers, and they've actually been able to use that extra budget from Xbox, since they are a first-party studio now, to add content that they originally wanted to put into the game and previously cut. So again, it was a good delay, but when are we going to see it? Well, I got some good news because Double Fine's Tim Schafer confirmed that the game is now fully playable from beginning to end, and that they are now working on the final credits. This means that it is likely very close to releasing. While we still don't have a definitive release date yet, it does appear we're going to get to play it ourselves sooner rather than later. Psychonauts 2 will be available on the PC, PS4, Xbox One, and it will be a next-generation exclusive for the Xbox Series. That does make sense considering Xbox owns Double Fine. And for that matter, that also means it will be an Xbox Game Pass game, so with that, I'm really hoping a lot of people try this game out when it releases. I'm expecting it to be another brilliant Psychonauts game. Also, there's been a lot of speculation on whether or not the Prince of Persia remake will come to the Nintendo Switch. The thing is, there is a reason why fans believe this will be available on the Switch, and that's because Ubisoft themselves. While they've only officially announced it for the PS4, Xbox One, and PC, they have somehow mentioned a Switch version at least twice so far. Once through their website where you was able to pre-order it for the Switch, and then on Twitter where they referenced a Switch version. It doesn't stop there though, because the Prince of Persia remake for the Switch has also popped up on retailer websites, so there's a lot of evidence that this is going to happen. Well, Ubisoft did it again. A Switch version has yet again resurfaced on their very own website. Yeah, it's starting to be very hard to believe that this is simply a mistake. This is now the third time Ubisoft themselves have made the same quote-unquote mistake. What I think is happening here is that Prince of Persia will get a staggered release. It'll probably come to the Switch months after it releases on other platforms, and they don't want to say that because they want you to buy it on those other platforms, and maybe even double dip when it comes to the Switch. This is something Activision did as well with games like Crash Bandicoot, and it was a very similar situation where those games kept leaking for the Switch, but they kept acting as if it was just a mistake, only to have it release on the Switch sometime later. So yeah, I believe Prince of Persia will come to the Nintendo Switch eventually, but I guess we'll have to wait and see. Just don't be too surprised if it does eventually happen. I mean, this game doesn't look like it's the most demanding game in the world, so I'm sure the Switch is more than capable of handling it. Next up, we're right at the end of the year, and that means we can celebrate the best of the best in the game industry. This is a time when you start to see a lot of rewards go out, including Game of the Year, but it's also the time to celebrate the people who's worked tirelessly on the games that we love so much. And that's where the Video Game Chronicles comes in, as they plan on giving out numerous awards, including the Developer of the Year and Person of the Year. Well, they just announced the Person of the Year today, and it's none other than the head of Xbox, Phil Spencer himself. This is in large part thanks to his transparency and excitement during a challenging year, and I 100% agree. I keep saying it, but it's been a weird year, and there were certain publishers that really tightened up and was a little bit more distant with their fans or even vague at times. Xbox, though, has been that one consistent company to release news on a weekly basis. This led all the way up to the launch of the Xbox Series, and even after that. I know this year in specific, it seems like Xbox was in the news a lot, and that's because of how transparent they've been. They've really made it their mission to consistently communicate with their fans, and it certainly shows. And really, I want to applaud Phil Spencer not for just this year, but for his job on the Xbox One and Xbox Series as a whole. When he took over Xbox, he was not put in a good position, no thanks to Don Matrick. Now that's an entirely different story, but since then he has had a major impact on the game community. He emphasized backwards compatibility, he helped create the best deal in gaming in Xbox Game Pass, and he's brought that excitement back to Xbox fans by focusing more on first-party studios. He's also really pushed for things like cross-platform and PC gaming. He has completely shifted the narrative of Xbox, and they have a very bright future. I think it's going to surprise a lot of people this generation, especially when we start seeing some of those first-party studios release games for the Xbox Series. Anyways, big congrats to Phil Spencer. It's well deserved. Let's talk about the PS5 though, because we got a few things to go over here, such as the Dualsense controller. Now, I've praised the new Dualsense controller several times on this channel, and I stand behind that. I think it's a brilliant controller that will ultimately help evolve controllers with its new technology. But yes, there's been some reports of the PS5 Dualsense controller failing. I saw multiple articles of this pop up over the last 24 hours, and this apparently is linked to the R2 and L2 adaptive triggers, where fans are reporting that they are breaking and becoming loose and unresponsive. So what's happening here is that there is a little spring inside these triggers that may get dislodged as you play games that stresses the adaptive triggers. Multiple users are saying they felt a snap inside, and after that is when they noticed a problem. The question though is, how widespread is this issue? Is this just a few rare cases, or is this going to become the next stick drift similar to what the Switch Joy-Cons are going through? Right now, I think it's a little too early to say one way or the other. You have to remember that millions of people are buying the PS5, and as with any launch console, there's always going to be some reported issues. I myself have not had a problem so far, and I've played my PS5 quite a bit. However, if you go search this problem up online, there are a lot of people running into this particular issue. It seems like both Resetter and Reddit is talking about this problem, and then over on YouTube there's multiple videos about the DualSense triggers breaking, and thousands of views on those videos. So this does seem like a legitimate problem, but again, we don't know how widespread it is. The good news though is that if you do run into this problem, and if you're brave enough, there are videos showing you how to fix it yourself, so do keep that in mind. If you don't want to do that though, you can always send it into Sony for them to repair, and that shouldn't be a problem either. Again, I do want to emphasize that we are amidst a launch, so whether this is going to be a common problem or if it's just a launch issue remains to be seen. This is also new technology with these adaptive triggers, so we don't really know if that will affect the lifespan of these controllers. As of this moment, the PS5 is only a month old, so it's hard to tell if this is going to be an ongoing issue or not. I certainly hope not, but let me know if you've had any issues with your adaptive triggers. Now, also another prominent lead for Sony Japan has announced his departure from the company. This time it's Teruyuki Toriyama, the producer of Bloodborne and the Demon's Souls remake. Now, usually I don't talk too much about people leaving companies because really it happens all the time, but the timing of his departure is notable. This is shortly after multiple leads within Sony Japan left to make their own studio, Boca Game Studios. And we have talked about them multiple times on the channel, including just yesterday. They did confirm that they're working on an action-adventure horror game, but yeah, this is the fourth prominent member to leave Sony Japan within the last couple months. This also follows the Bloomberg report that PlayStation is focusing less on games that primarily is geared towards the Japanese market. That's not a great sign for games like Gravity Rush, but there's been a lot of pushback on whether or not that report was true. Sony came out and kind of denied it, but it really seems like it's true based off what's been happening since. Of course, that's speculation, but the timing of all of this aligns with that report that Sony is going to focus more on the West. Now, that is something to keep in mind though. Sony Japan is still incredibly talented, and they work on several games that appeals to players worldwide, including Astrobot and Demon's Souls. So I do expect games like that to continue on, whether or not that report is true. I think it's games like Gravity Rush that will be a little bit more affected by Sony's new direction if it is indeed true. I do wonder if Toriyama is also heading over to Boca Game Studios though. If he is, that studio really is starting to sound really good. I'm excited to see what they're working on. On to our last topic though, the Nintendo Switch domination continues, and it's getting insane by this point. So Famitsu posted the new numbers for Japan and how much each console sold through on December 14th to the 20th. And check this out. The Nintendo Switch and Switch Lite sold 263,000 units, which is impressive all on its own. But it's actually even more impressive when you realize that every other console combined sold roughly 29,000 units. Yeah, that is a massive difference. The closest console to the Switch was the PS5 that sold 17,000 units. Now, to be fair, we are seeing some supply issues with the PS5, and if it was more readily available, we would likely see some better numbers there. Still, Nintendo has absolutely knocked it out of the park with the Switch, and that hybrid design is very important. Japan loves mobile consoles, so this is the perfect platform for them. So even if the PS5 was more readily available, I think the Switch will continue to outsell it. However, let's not focus primarily on just Japan because we got some new information that shows just how successful video games have been in 2020. I mean, sure, it's been a strange year, and I'm sure plenty of you are looking ahead to 2021. With that said, a lot of industries struggled and declined throughout the year of 2020, but one escape this year has been video games. A lot of people are turning to video games and seeking comfort in these hard times, and in fact, it's been a record-breaking year, and it's now being estimated that the video game industry revenues reached $180 billion this year. That is fantastic news. It's actually apparently more than both the movie and sports industry combined after they declined this year for very obvious reasons. So big congrats to the game industry as a whole, and thank you to all of the developers and publishers that brought joy through this difficult time. And with that said, that's it for this video, but I hope everybody enjoys their holidays. I probably won't have a video for tomorrow as I'll be spending time with my family, but I'll be back next week, and if you like the video, don't forget to hit the notification and subscribe button for more content just like this. Also, if you'd like to support the channel through Patreon, thank you for making this content possible. Peace out.